Formula One is officially back. We are here to make our 2026 season predictions. There is a lot of things to talk about before we begin the 2026 season. There are new regulations for every team. There's two new teams on the grid, and there are questions to be asked about every single one of these teams on the grid. We're going to be making our predictions for this entirety of the season, and I am super excited to be talking about our biggest surprises, our biggest disappointments. We have some new predictions this year as compared to last year in our DHL fastest pit stop team winners and the fastest pit team and time from the season. And then, of course, we're going to round things out with our constructors champions, our drivers champions, and as always, we'll wrap things up with our one crazy prediction for the 2026 season. It is going to be fantastic. Let's go ahead, jump on into this thing. But before we do get started with these predictions, I want to remind you and inform anyone new here to the channel that we are going to be doing a season-long community predictions championship across every single race weekend of this 2026 season. In the Discord, you can find the link down below. Leading up to the Grand Prix weekend, I will make a call for the predictions that I'm also going to be putting out leading up to every Grand Prix weekend, which will include the same, biggest good surprise, our biggest disappointments, our qualifying top 3 race podium, and as always, our one crazy prediction. So in the Discord, you can drop your predictions for the weekend and we'll assign points after it's all said and done. And at the end of the year, we'll see who really knows the most wheel knowledge. And not to brag or anything, but I am the reigning 2025 community champion. So if you think you know more wheel than me, head to the link down below, get in on the action, and join our little community predictions championship for 2026. Let's kick things off with our biggest positive surprise for 2026. And for this season, I think this is actually a bit of a value pick, especially based on a lot of the preseason rumors and speculations going about them. But my biggest positive surprise for 2026 is Williams. There has been a lot of talk about what's going on with Williams. Obviously, they've missed the Barcelona shakedown the entire week, did no running, and there has not really been a whole lot of explanation as to why. There's been a lot of rumors circulating that they're extremely overweight, failing the crash test, and just overall just in a bit of a shambles as we now head towards the week of Bahrain, testing session week 1. And so there are a lot of questions going on about Williams, but I think I'm actually going to go the other way. I do believe that Williams is going to carry a lot of the momentum that they built in 2025. They have a very strong driver lineup in Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon. They proved that last season with the start of the season that Alex had and the finish to the season that Carlos has. If they can get whatever is going on figured out, if they can then step into 2026 and a modicum of a decent footing, I think we'll see some special things from Williams this year. Not necessarily, breaking through any major milestones or anything like that, but I think they'll, at minimum, be able to continue on with the momentum that they built in 2025. All right, let's go ahead and start looking at the other side of the coin. We have our 2026 biggest disappointments. And I think for me, this one would legitimately be very disappointing to see. And my 2026 pick is Audi, formerly Sauber, formerly Stake, formerly whatever you want to call them. I think there has been a lot of momentum built by Sauber in their final of the year in 2025. Kind of very similar in the the other side of the paddock in terms of Williams, who ramped up and now they're kind of have a lot of questions. Now, Audi built up a lot of momentum. I guess Sauber built up a lot of momentum, but now with the transition to Audi and them also making their own power unit, I think there are a lot of questions about what is Audi going to bring to the table. Will they be able to make that transition smoothly? And honestly, I'm not so sure. There was a lot of weirdness around Audi's joining of the grid, taking over for Sauber, and there's just been a lot of very odd vibes around it. And maybe it's just because it's been talked about for so long, it's been a thing for so long that realistically the excitement had time to build and then die down. And I think there's just a lot of potential here for things to not go as well as they had originally planned. And there's something about the way that the sport is talking about them that has given me a lot of pause. And while I don't necessarily think they're going to fall off a cliff from like what we saw in 2025, But at the same time, I don't know if we'll necessarily see them jump in and start to compete at the level I'm sure they were expecting to when this deal was announced, that long time ago. And so, unfortunately, Audi, you are my pick for biggest disappointment. Hopefully, you prove me wrong. But there's just something about this team and the era around it that just doesn't sit very well with me. Okay, new prediction for 2026. I was poking around, wanting to switch things up. I wasn't super happy with the 2025 predictions I ended up going with. This one, I think, is actually another very interesting one that is still team-centric and really is showing off what these teams are built at, not only just from a driver's perspective. And so we are going with the winner of the 2026 DHL Fastest Pit Stop Championship. Obviously, if you're not aware, DHL is the official sponsor of pit stops, I guess. I don't really know the deep in and outs of it, but at the same time, they still assign points every single weekend based on fastest pit stop times, and teams are able to earn points. And it's sort of a pseudo constructors championship, sort of on the other side, when it's just centered entirely around pit stops. And so this season, I wanted to make a prediction for that championship. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it obviously also gives us an opportunity to highlight, not just the drivers and the technical staff. You also have the mechanics who, build these cars, operate on these cars, and obviously perform pit stops. And so this one is going to be a lot of fun as we talk about our fastest pit stop teams points champion for 2026. And I am going with Red Bull. This actually has been a bit of a Ferrari championship. I think they've won the last couple of seasons. Obviously, Ferrari has really stepped up their game. But at the same time, there was a long while there where Red Bull was one dominating. And there's just something about it that I don't know. I feel like Red Bull is going to get back to their roots of just focusing on being good top to bottom. Will it pan out? Who knows? But this is definitely just a bit of a vibes pick, as we're going to go with Red Bull to win the DHL Fastest Pit Stops Challenge Standings Constructors Championship. Who really knows? But let's go with Red Bull just in case, because they've done it before very clearly, and I think they're capable of getting back to it, especially with a bit of a refresh moment like these new era of regulations. All right, let's stay on the pit stop train, because kind of building off of it, I think we can go to the other side of this fastest pit stop thing and talk about which team is going to deliver the fastest pit stop in 2026. I think this is going to be a very interesting one to follow, because these crews have obviously gotten the benefit of a handful of years with the same cars and gotten an opportunity to sort of work out the kinks when it comes to pit stops with these cars. Going into a new era of regulations, it's also an opportunity for that to change. Obviously, the dynamics of the car are going to shift and change. The literal design of the car is going to change, and will that affect pit stops? Time will tell. Obviously, there's no longer going to be the wheel covers on the front, so that is going to add in a wrinkle. And so we're going to be making a prediction for the team who produces the fastest pit stop for the entire season, and sort of a pseudo tiebreaker, not that there really is a tiebreaker scenario, is just predicting the specific time that they're going to go. DHL tracks it to the hundredths, so that's what we're going to do. I believe in 2025 it was Ferrari with a 1.91 second pit stop. Obviously, I don't think it told me who it was, but at the same time, Ferrari, very good. 1.91 pit stop is nothing to shout about. And honestly, I'm going back to the well. My prediction for fastest pit stop team and time is Ferrari, and I'm going with a 1.94 second pit stop. I think that they'll have the opportunity to do it again. I think by the end of the season, they'll definitely have it more down. And especially for a team like Ferrari, which all due respect, and we're going to cover it in a bit, I don't necessarily know if they're going to be truly challenging for championships. And so I don't know if they'll be under the same pressures to deliver in pit stops that obviously kind of frees them up to perform even better. So time will tell. We'll see if Ferrari, this is also me a bit of just hedging my bets when it comes to picking Red Bull for the team champion. So we're going with Ferrari to perform the fastest pit stop in the entire season, and I'm going with a 1.94 second pit stop. All right, normally we do end with this one, but you got to leave the best for last when it comes to season predictions. So we are moving on to our one crazy prediction for 2026, and I think I've actually cooked up a really fun one, especially going into a new era of regulations, especially with these new power units. My one crazy prediction for 2026, and I for one would be all over this should this come true, is that there will be a race this year where the podium is comprised of all teams and drivers outside of the traditional top four, those being Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, and Red Bull. I foresee a vision at some point this season, whether it be reliability or a Hungary 2021 scenario where someone goes bowling, where there will be a podium comprised of entirely teams you would not expect to comprise the full podium. I think it would be a lot of fun. I think it would honestly be great for the sport to get someone outside of the top, four main contenders for podiums every week to get an opportunity to shine. And I think it would give everyone a feel-good moment for the season. And honestly, considering the reliability questions around these new power units, I think especially maybe even early on, it's not quite that far outside the realm of possibility that we see a team or a few teams have those reliability questions and fail the answers. So I don't know. I think this is definitely the definition of a crazy prediction, but at the same time, I don't know if it's that unplausible at the same time. All right, let's get down to the predictions that we're excited to hear, and that is what we are here to talk about. The Constructors Champions for 2026, famously won by McLaren by the wide margin of like 400 or something odd points in 2025. The Constructors Championship going into a new regulation set is always such an interesting one to make because you really do not know what's going to happen. But at the same time, there is someone we have to pick for the winners of the Constructors this season, and we will find out if they have what it takes. I mentioned it in their team preview. If you haven't seen that, check the channel. Did a team preview for every single team on the grid. My 2026 Constructors Champions are Mercedes. Yeah, I kind of got to go with the favorite here. Obviously, going into a set of regulations like this that is very clearly, at least speculated to be very much a power units regulation, an engine regulation, having a team which has historically dominated in engine regulations, putting them at the front, probably a pretty safe bet. I think that's kind of where I'm leaning at here. Obviously, I think this is something that could definitely happen in a lot of scenarios. The one bit of pause that I do have with it is unfortunately Kimi Antonelli. While Kimi did perform very well in 2025, I think he still has a bit of that unknown factor, especially with how will he transition into a new regulation set. Obviously, when you do a lot of testing and prep for one specific car, when you then step into an entirely different car, you don't know how necessarily it's going to gel. We obviously saw him finish on the podium. We saw him finish with plenty of like top fives and solid points finishing positions. Will it be enough to take the Constructors? I think so. But if there was going to be a moment of pause or a reason Mercedes doesn't win the championship, I mean, obviously outside their car just being way worse than people anticipated, I think the weakest link here could unfortunately be Kimi Antonelli. Do I think that's going to happen? Obviously not. I'm still predicting Mercedes to win the Constructors. But it is something I had to consider when I was coming up with my responses to these questions. So time will tell. I think they get it done, but it's definitely something to monitor here in 2026. And then finally, obviously, it is what the entire season leads up to and culminates in when it is all said and done. Our 2026 World Drivers Champion, won by Lando Norris in 2025, chasing down not only his teammate Oscar Piastri, but holding off a charging Max Verstappen down the end of last season. We go into a new era of regulations and a lot of questions that need answered. Mainly of which, who will walk away the top of the top, the winner of the 2026 World Drivers Champion in Formula One. I am going with George Russell. This is definitely leaning into my assumption or belief that Mercedes is going to be very strong in 2026. And if they are going to perform at the level and to the expectations placed upon them, I think George has to be in talks to winning the Drivers' Championship. Obviously, we saw even in an era where Mercedes was very up and down, I think 2025 was a great example of what could potentially help him in winning a championship, of just always being relatively consistent, always feeling like he's there or thereabouts to score solid points, not necessarily DNFing a lot, not necessarily making those big mistakes, but always being right there. There was always the meme or the joke about Russell just spawning into a podium when something goes wrong for someone ahead. I think that's for a very good reason. I think we've seen George be very consistent and learn to how to deliver over the course of an entire season in 2025. Will he be able to do that when his might be considered the championship favorite? Time will tell. Will Mercedes walk away with it? In a car that's similar to the McLaren last year? I'm not sure, and I honestly doubt it. But at the same time, this is definitely some Mercedes hopium. But is expected to bring the best engine, and obviously that puts them with a big leg up on the rest of the grid. Now, there are obviously other teams with that same engine in the car, but Mercedes gets that double benefit. I talked about it in the team preview, that they just get such a benefit and bonus as compared to everyone else on the grid. So it's something to monitor. But at the end of the day, if Mercedes lives up to the hype, I think it's not an unreasonable expectations for George Russell to win Mercedes another World Drivers' Championship. So there we have it, guys. Our 2026 season predictions are done and dusted, but don't go anywhere because I want to add in a little thing that we did last season, which is talking about making our official predictions for the exact finishing positions for both the drivers and the constructors championship. We're going to do this relatively quickly, but I think it could be a lot of fun. I'm going to hopefully remember to just overlay my exact predictions, because going through each of them in detail would take a long time. But we're just going to quickly go through my predictions. We'll start with the Drivers' Championship. We'll begin with 22nd and move to first. For you, you'll hopefully see them all at the same time. But going from 22nd to first, we're going with Valtteri Bottas, Franco Colapinto, Gabriel Bortoleto, Sergio Perez, Arvid Lindblad, Nico Hulkenberg, Lance Stroll, Pierre Gasly, Liam Lawson, Esteban Ocon, Isaac Hadjar, and Ollie Behrman, rounding out 22 to 11. As we move on now to the top 10, I am going with Alex Albon in 10th position, Fernando Alonso 9th, Carlos Sainz 8th, Lewis Hamilton 7th, Charles Leclerc 6th. Now, with only the top 5 remaining, we have Kimi Antonelli coming in 5th, Oscar Piastri 4th, Max Verstappen 3rd, Lando Norris 2nd, and as we mentioned before, George Russell winning the World Drivers' Championship. I love doing these because it's so fun to, especially going into this new era of regulations. I talk about it a lot. There's just so many questions that trying to pinpoint exactly where people are going to finish, almost impossible. This is literally the definition of a vibes sort of prediction. But you know what? I'm feeling pretty confident. But let's go ahead and talk about our Constructors' Championship as well. Starting in 11th, moving down towards first. We'll begin in 11th. We have Cadillac, Audi, Alpine, VCARB, RB, Racing Bulls, whatever they want to call themselves, Haas, Aston Martin, Williams. Then rounding out the top 4, we have Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, and then Mercedes winning the World Constructors' Championship. Will be very interesting to see what these predictions look like near the midpoint of the season when we do our mid-season updates. But at the same time, it's always fun to do these because it really is a big litmus test on the vibes of a team going into the season. And then obviously our mid-season review, we'll see just how wrong we were when it's all said and done. But guys, thank you for briefly indulging me to do that. I love doing those very specific predictions just for fun. We'll see where that ends up. But that is actually going to wrap it up here. Our 2026 predictions are officially in the books. Bahrain testing week 1 is only a handful of days away, and we are going to get to see these cars on track for the first time legally, outside of the super secret PSYOP Spain test, which we got to see a lot of anyway. Obviously, it's going to be great to see these guys back on track. These new cars are going to be so much fun to follow, and the championships are basically going to be starting in people's minds literally this week. So keep an eye out for our thoughts on week 1 next week. We'll be going over what we saw, things that worry us, things that we liked, and everything in between. But guys, if you haven't already, subscribe down below. As the season is nearing ever closer, I'm looking forward to nothing more than talking Formula One with all of you. Leave a comment down below what you make of my predictions and tell me what you think is going to happen. Or better yet, head over to Discord, drop your predictions in the F1 Weekend Predictions Discord channel, and join in on our predictions championship. And if you made it this far into the video, I truly appreciate you, and leave a like rating on the video because it really helps me out. We'll be back next week to talk about what we saw in Bahrain week 1, talk about what we're expecting to see in Bahrain week 2, and we are marching ever closer to Australia in just a few short weeks. Guys, I appreciate you. I hope you had fun with this one. I know I did. But until then, I'll see you in the next one.